Um, I've also run a boutique investment fund early on, also a little bit invested myself. Now I work with startups all across Europe and with corporates in Baltics in terms of building new products and services, a bit of the out of the box. And I'm super thankful and humbled that I'm back to Prototron, I think, for, is it the batch number 5 or batch number 4 or something, something that like that. Yes, okay, you already communicate about how to raise hand. Great. So this is kind of makes me to be able discussing the early product sort of development part or business development part from very different angles, and that's why I'm probably also invited. So let's start with this weird question, and I'm a weird person asking you weird questions. All the answers are correct, but in your own words, what do you think is the main thing of a startup? Because you're supposed to build some, you're already building some. So what do you think is the main thing of a startup? Any company, actually, for the matter, but let's focus on startups tonight. Solving problem, beautiful. Harold.
I think a startup would be like a group of person with one goal to make something better.
Okay, to make something better. So that's the good. Okay, beautiful. Getting the business going. Beautiful, Johan. Uncertainty is the main thing. Yeah, basically it's a process, but still it's true. It's a very good one. Uncertainty, getting business going, scalability, Dima. Beautiful. Fast growth, Marilyn. Okay. What's the difference between the scalability and the growth? We'll touch upon that later. This is just I'm planting seeds for you to discuss it maybe later. Innovation, Alina says. Okay, providing some kind of value. Exactly. In a simple terms, what is the thing that keeps you alive at night? You're a startupper. Purpose. Good. Okay, I won't talk to you too long. Mission. True. Always true. Something 10 times better. Okay, 9 is not good, 10 is good. Very good. Great. See. Impact. Okay. Scalability. Has idea, but no money yet. That's the main thing. All right. In my simple world, the main thing of a startup is to find working business model before you run out of the cash. That's simple, because if you run out of the cash, you start doing other things in life, okay? There's this thing called enthusiasm and something else that you pretty much, if you don't figure out what is the something that works, that you can't go for forever, right? There's this thing called runaway and everything along those things. And everything you said is super true, both process and result and mission wise. But basically the one thing you should watch out when you do start, in a super simple terms, and sorry for my cynicism, some of you can probably count it into this category, is pretty much you need to figure out something while you have the runway open. And what is that something? What is the business model? Again, in your own words, now everyone in the high school already is taught is the business model and what's not. What is the thing you need to find out working? Anyone? How you can define it in simple terms, deliver the product the people are willing to pay money for. Yeah, exactly. Good one. How to earn money. Beautiful, Damien. How to put bread on a table. Good. Exactly. So this is, again, there is a smart academic definitions of capturing the value, but the business model is nothing else. The way the company generates or is supposed to generate, once you're not having the paying customers yet, revenues. And mind it, it's not profit, but revenues, because you can purposefully forego profit for example, growing faster. But you have to figure out how to make revenues before you run out of the cash, which whatever you had in early. But there are a couple of kind of important words you already touched upon. You are, as a startup, supposed to generate those revenues repeatably and scalably. The scalability is in kind of a brackets because it's not necessarily black and white, and there's different degrees of scalability. But let's just stick to this one. So you have to be able to generate revenues repeatably. That's something we all get, right? There's not, most likely one purchase and one customer would not make this startup going. So you have to be, you have to develop the business model that is repeatable, that you can repeat it with relatively unknown people. But in a startup world, and this is what defines startup, not all young companies or not all starting up companies are startups. That is, the startup business model of the startup requires a certain degree of scalability, or I would say a fair degree of scalability. What's the scalability? Anyone has a good idea what's the scalability? How it differs? Now we're back to this discussion, not a discussion, but I think Merrily and someone else kind of tried distinguishing between growth and scalability. Anyone? I won't torture you for too long, don't worry. Involve new schemas to earn. Okay, that's something, whatever the schemas mean, but yeah. Okay, there was a flying in, just our growing company, different geolocations and revenue streams. A good one, interesting. Expand the business. Expanding, you can different ways to expand. Model working while revenue grows. Okay, the scalability, ability to increase, organic expansion, all is good and all is correct. Now, the scalability is the feature of your business model where each next sale doesn't result into a increase of the expense, of the direct expense. So in other words, whether 100 people buy tomorrow, whatever that is, what they're buying, subscriptions or one time or whatever's there, right? Whether 100 people buy or 10,000 people buy, you do not have a difference in your variable / direct / manufacturing cost. Of course, there are different expenses. There are lots of maintenance costs, maybe, and marketing, whatnot. But the costs attributable directly to the product are not there. This is scalability at its best. So meaning that you are able to grow super fast. If you hit the bullseye, you could be 100 times bigger next month, right? Whereas if you have, for example, something, the manufacturing / direct cost / variable cost associated with every your unit of your sales, you can grow, but you can't explode. Okay? Are you with me? So that is scalability. Good, beautiful. So that is scalability. That's how growth is different from scalability, which you already kind of feel intuitively that, okay, all the digital products scale much better than physical do, right? Yes, to an extent, but not necessarily. Often the revenue model, the way how you take the money, the way the channel where you package your product into or service into are also critically important in defining and changing the scalability of your business model. Just consider a few examples. One is, for example, an online class which is pre-recorded and then sold, right, for, I don't know, X amount of money. If you were doing it as I'm doing, sitting with you or maybe someone else in the class or online every evening, I would have the cost associated with every gig, with every workshop. If you record it and publish it, and then people buy, no matter whether 10 or 1,000 buy next month, is basically you don't have that production cost increasing. Okay. Again, that is just an example of the service as kind of a educational service, but you can think of many things that way. Digital and non-digital products, having the connected hardware with some subscription element into that increases the scalability. By saying that, don't think that the scalability itself is some kind of a silver bullet that solves everything and that everything should be scalable. Not necessarily everything should be scalable, but I would always invite you thinking about your business models, how scalable they might be and how scalable you wish them be, because the early, like initial scalability does increase also most of times the risk of starting up, and that's why startups are risky and riskier than doing a coffee shop or bakery, in case you wondered, because they're far away from market and they have this all or nothing element into their business model. All right. So let me think. Okay, you're here. Good. Let's move on. So, and a working business model, as opposed to hypothetical business model, we can devise is paying customers. So before you do have paying customers, your business model is highly hypothetical, and what to do about it, we'll talk about tonight and the next Monday night as well. Okay, let's move on. So how to get to the working business model. So you have an idea, most of you, and you're relatively early and think what you need to be doing. You actually try getting to that weird thing, sometimes referred to as a product market fit. You try to make sure that you have a sufficient degree of a product market fit. And sometimes this is very misunderstood by its definition. There's two things to it, but one of them is kind of more important than the other. Let's look into that in a more detail. What is that product market fit? There's one definition from a kind of a ex-celebrity of the Silicon Valley. So it's a degree of which product satisfies a strong market demand, or being in a good market with a product that satisfies it, or having a product that people can't have enough of, and opening the wallets in front of you. If you look to those all three are definitions, there's a pattern. They're somewhat different, somewhat similar, but there's a pattern in a concept. So the first concept is that, or actually three concepts. The first concept is there should be a product. But if you carefully look, or solution, we can generalize. But if you carefully look to those definitions, no one there, it said it should be a great product, a perfect product, a polished product, right? None of those tells about it. So keep in mind, you have to have some sort of a solution. And then there's this other concept, which is this strong market demand. So you have to be with this, some sort of a solution. You should be in a healthy market, a strong market. That's the second one. So in not just in any market, but in a market which has the demand. And the third concept, it has to be sticky. So your solution needs to stick well, to be very sticky to that strong market demand, to that strong market, to that strong need. And why I'm kind of dissecting that in this particular way, because many times startups, including yours truly, who have been also in those shoes a few times, we tend to build products that we like in anticipation that market will get it. It's not necessarily a bad idea. It's not necessarily always wrong, but it's a high risk strategy, because given the runway we discussed, given the limited time and other resources in possession of a startup, most likely the market will not get soon enough for you. Okay, sorry for not being particularly inspirational with that part, but yeah, I hope you see where I'm getting with all this. So it's basically market beats everything. You probably have heard also those stories yourselves, that you can have, you know, the A team, the greatest ex-startuppers or greatest PhD, you know, holders and everything, and you can have a beautiful product, a great solution. But if you're for some reason are tapping into a unhealthy market, either non-existent yet anymore, or not willing to pay for some reason because they're not accustomed to paying for those things, that could happen, especially in the digital world, you're doomed. And on the other hand, you can have just a lousy team, let's be honest, out of some random hackathon or high schoolers, and then the product is half-baked and it's ugly, and you know, the user experience sucks and everything. But if with all that thing, if you tap into something purposefully or by accident, you tap into something that the world needed yesterday, you'll be much bigger, better than the first example. Okay, you'll be much better. You will have kind of excuse for improving the team and polishing the product or something in between. So the big idea is that watch out where this healthy market is, or which niche or which segment of that is healthy. And then the next thing is, and this is what we're kind of trying, we'll try to dissect in a bit more of a detail today and next time, is how you make it, how you test whether it's sufficiently sticky. Because again, the very fact that someone needs a solution does not mean that your solution does the job. Okay, it doesn't mean automatically that you can provide a solution to the market which needs something, probably, unless the market gets it and really craves for it. All right, this is kind of a thing. Why it's important, why finding product market fit is the most important if you're super early, if you are just have idea which is not, you know, tested yet with the market, which doesn't have paying customers or recurring paying customers. It might have one or two, but it's still also not representative to the recurrence of the revenues. So first of all, it's important that the process itself allows you building products on evidence and not what you think they might need. And as in result would reduce the development risks and launching risks. It also, for the same reason, helps to avoid building beautiful solutions for non-existent problems. Again, the same story, you actually have a solution, and sometimes quite frequently it is deep tech's problem. You know, the science commercialization. There is a super cool concept scientifically, and it kind of technologically it does the job, but it doesn't solve a real problem. It might solve like a version, like a third degree of a problem, of a real problem. And most importantly, in startup world, to avoid this called premature scaling. So premature scaling is something that startups do, that they start raising money and growing the team fast and executing fast before they really make sure that the thing they're building is sticky. And it results actually, it's typically ends very badly, unless they could pivot in somewhere in between and find the stickiness on the fly, because they have changed the mindset from experimentation into execution too early. And there is a certain social pressure for doing that, right? There is this, you know, startups are those vanity measures. Startups are praised for raising money and all that stuff and whatnot. And they go like with the flow. They say, okay, we're already like a 2 years old startup, so we definitely should raise a seed round immediately. Otherwise, we're kind of a bunch of suckers. But if you haven't figured out what's the sticky part and what exactly that strong market is in, and how you can reach it out to it and everything, most likely you're not ready to raise. Most likely you would have a risk of scaling prematurely without executing upon something that is not sufficiently sticky and not sufficiently validated. Okay. Any questions at this point? You're way more quiet than all the previous Prototron batches. So maybe already Jana was silently telling you that you should probably not, because we typically, being everyone's asking questions, ended up in having three hours instead of 2. Okay, so yeah. All right, guys. If you want something to know, ask. If you disagree, please disagree. I love it myself. It's a justified disagreement, discussion. It's a beautiful thing. All right, good. So once again, in a nutshell, in order to move to something working business model, figuring out the repeatable and scalable revenue model, the first thing is understanding do you have anything that sticks with the market sufficiently to keep trying? Do you have anything, and is the market sufficiently healthy that's worth your time and attention? Because once again, life's limited time frame, at least that's what I've figured out recently. And you can have alternative ways of entertaining yourselves, not necessarily building startups. Yes, Harold.
So how do I understand if a market is healthy or not? How do I measure the health of a market?
Yeah, you test it. Well, okay, you move on. There's 2 ways to it. Of course, there is, that's a great one, actually. Thank you. There are 2 ways to approach these, and there's definitely a combination. I would suggest you apply a combination of them. If you are into, I will give another, like, bring into the picture a little bit of another angle, which is not, probably was not prescribed for me for today, but there are 2 types of markets from other perspective. There is this called existing market, or I would call it more precisely existing user experience markets. Okay, so where you actually, the concept of solution is known and you're just improving it, sort of building a better mousetrap, right? Or baking a tastier bread, or whatever is that. There's people get what's bread is and people get what's mousetrap is, right? You're just making a better version of that. So your potential customers can have a comparison, they can have a reflection of what was the previous solution, and you bring one new in. And then there's another type of a market, which is so-called new market, or new user experience market, where the solution you're providing, even for your potential customers, is not exactly understandable immediately. Okay, it could be like a different, it's not necessarily always technological thing. It's sometimes just the way you do things, the way they're charged, for example, the way they pay for you, or some other things. But actually, in a nutshell, the product is not being around in a direct comparison, right? And if you're in an existing user experience market, then you can learn lots of the market from those existing solutions out there, right? Whether they're doing fine or not, and if they're not doing fine, that is probably I would say a very much of a red flag, unless you have solved something profoundly that they haven't. And on the other hand, you just try to understand, try to follow the problem and understand what's the magnitude of the problem you are solving is, and then carefully try testing whether the market is willing to pay for this. In a second case, is much more difficult. In both occasions, you try to test it with market, your own solution. In one case, you have more of information how market behaves with similar products. In other, you don't. Okay, so but thanks for the question. Good. Let's move that now down to more of a flesh. So how you actually move from your idea to finding or trying to validate your product market fit. So first thing, you make your assumptions. Sometimes it's called business modeling and business model design and business model prototyping, or whatever, all those great words. But it's basically what you do, you hypothesize. Since you have only limited information how this is going to work, when it's going to work, you hypothesize, you come up with hypotheses. And there, in context of the product, there are plenty of other business model hypotheses, but in a context of product market fit, at least in my world, there are largely 5 groups, also somewhat overlapping groups of assumptions. So one is all assumptions about the customers. Then there are assumptions of their needs and problems. Then there are assumptions of what they might expect, what they want to have of the similar solution, which AKA is your product. And on the other hand, also what you can deliver of those, because not necessarily all the expectations of your customers you can fulfill, especially with your first product. Then as a result, and I'm always I love thinking of the functionality of the product as a result of those needs and potential values you can bring to the table, not other way around. Okay, we thought it should be like that. No. Here's what is the biggest pain in the back, and here's how we can probably solve. And as a result of that, we have this and this and this in our functionality of the product. And then the last one, of course, in my world, is debatable. Some say this is not a part of the product market fit. I do think it is, because what I mentioned about the willingness of the market to pay and everything else is your assumptions on how you're going to monetize it, how you're going to get the money, either from users or from other third parties. You're going to be very complex, very sophisticated business models occasionally, where one side uses, one side uses and the other side pays, all that stuff. So before you have repeatable and scalable revenue going, that are all assumptions. And that is the big idea to actually live with. That no matter how smart you are, no matter how much you are potentially a customer of your own solution, those are just assumptions. All right, a bit closer, and of course, I think Jana did she mention or not, but you will be having, of course, this slide deck for those of you into. There's also recording ongoing, but the slide deck would also be in your emails or Slack or whatever is published tomorrow latest. So I will send it tonight to Jana. Okay, just for you to know. Some of you, like I saw, are taking photos and stuff, but feel free to do that, of course, if it helps, but it will be with you. All right. Customer. Oh, my bad. So let's say I was jumped. So customer hypothesis. So who are the customers? Sometimes demographics is important. Sometimes geography is important. Lifestyles, hobbies, values. Maybe none of those. Maybe some other things are important to sort of define who are the most likely groups of the customers whom you actually try to be sticky for. In the B2B, this is the same story. Again, not all the companies are serving. There's definitely some industry, but it's equally also geography, size of the company, maybe the way, maybe this is a family companies, maybe these are, I don't know, listed companies and anything in between. And more importantly for the B2B, who are those people? Because companies are very amorphous concepts. Who are the people within in the B2B context within a companies to whom you solve something professionally, ease their work or make them earn or make them save or whatever is in there? How many are they there, right? That's a difficult one because the market metrics and market size estimations is very, very an approximate endeavor, but still. Just one word on markets is that we sometimes are obsessed with the size of the market and accessibility of the market, which is a big thing, of course, but you know, the size of the market is always known in retrospect. We typically are operating some data which are at least 2 years old, right? The most important, or more important, I would argue, that the size, of course, is important, because if there's no existing market, that most likely a startup is super difficult to create one, unless there is some inherent, you know, already movement towards something. But I would pretty much argue that from startups' perspective, dynamics of the market is more decisive, more interesting and important than its absolute size of it. Because in a fast-growing, so in other words, the fast-growing markets are much more interesting than just big markets. Markets that are not necessarily big today, but will be big tomorrow and in 3 years or in 5 years. Why? I think it's you can deduct it from common sense perspective. Because if the market grows fast, there is definitely an underserved need and underserved segments and niches, okay? As opposed to a huge but a stagnant market for some reason. Which means that for newcomers, which is you, which is startups, right? There is a much, much bigger chance to jump on this bandwagon and basically kind of with the tailwind of the market, of a fast growth of the market, to get to some market position. In big markets, it's often, you know, difficult for newcomers to get in unless they are trying to resegment the market and find a specific niche, right? Which is maybe growing within the market as such. So watch out for those internal sort of market shifts or whatever, not just average total available market numbers or something, which are in the end of the day maybe useful only with the investor within an investor's discussion. Okay, so can you reach those customers? Can you sell and deliver to them? Maybe there are for some reasons, the technological or geographical barriers, they're out of your reach. So the very fact that there are many of them and they desperately need what you're doing is not necessarily always the answer. Then a problem hypothesis. Okay, these customers, what they want to accomplish generally in life and business and What's the overarching goals? What are those contexts? Often their visions and contexts matter very much. What are the needs? Maybe there are even problems you can identify. What are those unfulfilled needs or existing problems? And what they might expect from the solution like that in a context. So understanding your customer and a problem, especially if you're building a new user experience product, is a paramount. It's a kind of a most important thing probably in the beginning. There's this banal saying, you have heard it probably 1,000 times, which says that you better fall in love with the problem than with the solution, okay? It's kind of true, because then you have to figure out what's really broken before just coming up with what you want to, and what you suggest solving. You have to understand it very well, ins and outs. Now the value prop. So what are those functional values? Is it just about functional values? Sometimes you're in market which is only about those 4 classical functional values: cheaper, faster, easier, and better quality. But not necessarily. They're always, in most of the situations, there are of course products we're definitely buying only. Think of your buying behaviors, by the way. Some are products we definitely buy only on those functional values, right? But there are definitely products and services we actually consider buying also because of other things. They could be lots of things that add to your, our self-realization or resolve our kind of emotional, social needs. All this story and branding and values the product represents are actually into this ballpark. But not only them, there's plenty of other things. Kind of functionality things which are not directly attributable to those 4 things I mentioned before, but are still kind of important. All right. And then there is your hypothesis, your €100 or 1,000 or million or billion euro hypothesis. What is the sticky part? Out of all those things you've got, what are the sticky part which will trigger your potential customers into buying? What is this? Sometimes I'm ironizing on that, like, what is that special sauce which allows you to jump over the chasm between nice product and where can I buy it? It's a huge actually chasm there. Nice product. Okay, we see some nice product on Product Hunt or Facebook, and we give the thumbs up and yeah, cool, and we share it. And then will you buy it? Well, no, really, and it's not for me. No, not this year. I might consider buying it next year, but now, well, the season is over or something, right? Okay, there are plenty of very legitimate excuses, but there's a miracle, kind of miracle happening between nice product and yes, I'm going to buy. And figuring out what it might be, we are currently talking about hypotheses still. Figuring out what it might be in your case, it goes a long way. It does really go a long way, because it's kind of helps you to understand what you should amplify in your business model. All right. Then there is a functionality hypothesis. How exactly, like I said, the functionality is a result of all that previous exploration. How exactly that product is going to meet the needs. How does that translates into functionality? What is the MVPs and MSPs? Some people don't use the MSP, they use only the MVP, which stands for minimum viable product. I a little bit distinguish the MVP from MSP, because in my world, the MVP is something you can learn. Yes, you kind of may try selling it, but basically it's for getting a feedback. which implies that you open up that definition to much earlier stages of MVP. For example, a good story could be an MVP, because if you can explain what you're doing and people stop you by saying where can I buy it, that's probably your MVP was working already. An MSP is something you definitely attempt to sell. But I'm perfectly okay with this school of thought which says that all of this is MVP. I don't care. I just want you to understand that this is something that everything you build initially is for learning. It's still this build, test, learn circle, as you probably have seen it somewhere. Okay. Sorry, that's my bad. And last but not least, those revenue model hypotheses. You're still hypothesizing, you're still assuming a few things. How to monetize the usage. So what is exactly the revenue model? Is it subscription? Is it pay per go? Is it unit sale? Is it unit sale plus some subscription? Is it freemium where you ask only for extra features and everything is for free in the beginning? Is it more of an auction type of sale where you just price it and take the money depending on the bigger wind is outside, the bigger money you take? You actually can do it for some micro generation and things and everything. Okay, there what kind of monetization you assume, and just remember all the time, before it starts working, it's all assumptions. Is the price and revenue model acceptable? This goes back to our discussion with Harald we had on this existing user experience markets and new user experience markets. Sometimes in existing user experience markets, just people are not accustomed paying that way, and it's hard to convince them. Or on contrary, you may be very different from the mainstream competition by charging differently, right? Remember $1 Shave Club. There was the long time ago, and some of you have never heard of it. There were guys who were selling razor blades as home delivery by subscription business model. How cool, because they just figured out how not to be on the same shelf with Gillette and Wilkinson and all those mammoths. So they just sold simple, mundane razor blades, but they sold it with a door delivery. Even before it all was a hype and subscription. You paid like $1 a week or something and got the new razor blade in your post box. Just a little example how you can differentiate things even with adopting the new revenue model. But of course, that increases the risk that most of the customers you would like to have are not getting it, are not understanding how that works. Maybe there are different, some of you wrote also in terms when we spoke about earlier about answering a few of my questions, that there probably are possible creating various revenue streams. So maybe for B2B customers, you charge it you sell it by unit, and for B2C you rent them. I've seen those occasions as well. The same product, just a different customer. You milk them differently. Just again, I'm not inviting you every time, doing funny and very obsolete revenue models, but just keep thinking about that all the time. There are better ways how to monetize it, like a more win-win type of ways how to monetize. Yeah, exactly. So just that probably some of you have seen all those great things. Who has seen this thingy? I guess many of you, right? Yes, Imer has, definitely. This is a value prop canvas. So there again, coming up with this hypothesizing, coming up with your idea, assumptions and structuring them could be done on a sheet of paper if you wish. However, I would strongly suggest that you try, at least, not necessarily use, but try using some of those formats of these modeling formats. Why? variety of reasons. First reason, it's better if you are a team, it's better to align and everyone has an eyes on what's critical and what's unknown and what we're testing now. Secondly, this also helps very much to structure it yourselves and to see how to sort of account for a progress with your testing plans. We'll be talking about today and tomorrow, next Monday. And the third, this is also helps communicating whatever issues or problems or maybe bottlenecks you're having with third parties like mentors. Maybe some investors actually ask you doing this thing. Not sure how much they look into that, but I think it's just for being able to being on the same page. So this is a value prop canvas. So once again, this tackles particularly the things we discussed, except of the revenue models part. It tackles everything else that is related to to assumptions regarding the product market fit. I personally use it like exactly from defining and kind of distilling the functionality out of the customer's potential problems and needs. Yes, Aimar.
Okay. Related to this, that you have any experience or a short comment about that? Is the product market fit kind of more difficult when you're dealing with the platform type of startup business model? So then you need to define, for example, this value map for the customer, for the partner, for third parties, and so on.
Yeah.
How difficult it is? Does it double the problems that we have to handle also?
Yeah, it quadruples 2 times 2. It quadruples the problems. Yeah, the platform business models. Thank you for a great question, Emma. Again, I've been only observing with some of my friends and customers and everyone else I help. Right, I haven't built myself not before. I haven't been in the platform business myself, to be honest. But I would say it does, because exactly for the reason you mentioned. And this is not only for I'll be back for the platform, but let's also think of this value prop, because the value propositions, even if you have multiple customer segments on one-sided platform, right? If, for example, sell to B2B, to B2C, pretty much the same product. For example, you can sell I don't know, some things you can sell to governments, right? And you can sell to end users as well, and anything in between. And for all of those customer segments, which are very discrete, kind of specific customers, you develop for each of them, you develop your different value proposition, right? Because some businesses, for example, buy because it helps them earning, right? And for example, the households buy because it helps them saving something, right? And there's a slightly different reasons, even with one-sided, when one type of product or service, which you can offer for example, I don't know, to students and to their parents and to for example to the teachers, right? Something like that. So this means that every customer segment kind of requires a specific attention of whether those problems and pains and potential solutions to those pains are similar, or are we offering something different. Now with the platforms, indeed, you have typically the vendors side, then you have the customer side, and then sometimes also some other enablers, right? Maybe, I don't know, depending on type of your platform, it could be more than 2. And that is, first of all, it requires understanding what is sticky for each of them. Right? So for vendors, it is probably, again, possibility to either share and earn on their unused resource. I'm just thinking out loud. I'm not necessarily, this is the case you're referring, but something that they can probably utilize better than for buyers. There is a reasons why they would like to have it and to use it. And for all of them, and this is more difficult, because if you, for example, figure out what is extremely sticky and in high demand for users, right? And if for some reason you can't onboard your providers, your vendors with the same, or not the same, but similarly sticky promise, because value proposition in its essence, it's a promise to your customers what great things will happen to them, right? That simplified way. So it's very difficult, but again, you typically start with some end. Most of occasions I've seen, Aymar, you start with fixing the supply, but not necessarily every time. Sometimes you start with fixing the demand. I'm not sure if I...
That was great answer, but briefly, just feedback that I feel that when developing this platform model, you have to make this canvas, value canvas for the supplier, for the consumer, but instead of making yourself attractive, you have to also find that these both sides, B2B, that you're like a mediator.
Yeah,
that these also suit together. Not
absolutely.
My product, but also that there is also match between the supplier and the consumers, for example.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. That the offering, that the one thing that is brought because of the reasons of whatever value you bring to one is brought to this either inquiry, or the product is brought to the platform, is sufficiently sticky from the other angle as well. Yes, Olaf asks, so yeah, you're welcome. You should create canvas for each customer segment. That would be some things will overlap. If it's a one-sided market, if it's just like B2Bs and B2Cs, and maybe there are young moms and grandparents or something, I'm just thinking out loud. Some things may overlap, but I would suggest that you think of them relatively separately until you test and prove that they have similar problem, okay? Not the other way around. They have similar problem and we treat them all equally and all's be good. No. We think that these contexts are somewhat different, and we try to separate them unless they're proving to us that no, actually quality price ratio is the single biggest buying trigger for everyone. So fine, beat, right? You tested it. All right, so this is a particular canvas, particular tool that helps you to look into this. This questions about who's the customer, what's broken, what's the context, what's broken, how we can fix it in the easiest way, what are the parts of our solution, what does the job, how does the product looks as a result, and what's the sticky value prop. Then there is this beast, and if you look carefully down to this, it is just a zoom in. See, in the upper part of the slide, it's just a zoom into a bigger picture, and this is business model canvas. Again, I bet some of you have seen it, some of you hate it profoundly because some people teach them at universities in the wrong way, and I know it, since I also have a hobby teaching at university, hopefully in a right way. But so this is, which implies this is more already out of the product market fit considerations, except of the revenue streams is still, in my world, a product market fit kind of a hypothesis, as well as maybe the cost structure also, because you have to make it viable in the longer run. But then there is, of course, that lots of questions you can ask about how to communicate with the customers, where to sell, how to sell, what key resources you should control or possess, and what key partnerships you need, and etc. So again, the same story. What I would every modeling document that you are just that's not a silver bullet. It won't help you, to do things just great because of the sake of, you know, doing, but it definitely will help you to structure your thinking in a way that is enabling you to be on the same page and know what you're doing in terms of your testing. And by the way, I will leave you also with some sources. If you want to dig deeper and see the initial source, I would happily leave you with some sources where you can dig up all those canvases. Another slightly different is this lean canvas. It is, to my preference, it is good for digital products like while this the business model canvas is very generic. You can actually model lots of things there. And I somehow myself, I was thinking there are a couple of things which are represented here and a couple of things are not there, and the vice versa. Let's try looking on all of them and try to think of how you can use them. Business model canvas and together with the value prop canvas is by far the most popular used. This is a little bit less popular though, like I said, for maybe about channels and customer relationship. Okay, beautiful question, Gontes, and I will get back to them. Okay, that is sometimes indeed this is difficult to distinguish. The customer relationships technically is the way how you get, keep, and grow your customers. So how do you track them? Is it Facebook? Is it paid ads? Is it Google AdWords? Is it word of mouth? Is it influencers? Is it opinion leaders? Remember, those are two different things. Is it anything else, right? So this is, and then how you keep them, how you upsell to them, how you make them bringing you new customers, and all that communication part. Both direct and indirect, and channels is where you sell it. If it's an app, it's an app store. Maybe it is your own platform. You sell something, not your own platform, but your own site. Or is it maybe if you're having physical product, it's just a physical channel. It's a department store or supermarket or whatever is there, right? And how you deliver. Because in some situations, delivery is also a value-added thing. Think of all the Amazon, its early years and everything, right? How you do delivery, sometimes, most of times nowadays, it's kind of very generic and the delivery does not like make it a different, but it might make it a different. It's door-to-door delivery, or is it like for digital product? Is it like just a download, or then there is, you know, this download and password protected and something that all kind of matters. Sometimes thinking, not necessarily always very much, but sometimes matters. So channels is something where the actual transaction with your product happens, and the customer relationships is all the things what you are ensuring in order to make, you know, people find your product and make the buying decision and then make repetitive decisions. I hope, Gunther, I answered that. Okay. Now that is the first. So altogether, the first thing, whatever you use, whatever canvas or whatever you use, you hypothesize, you come up with your assumptions and structure them in a certain way that you are able to, in ideal world, you are able to test them, to look at them in an order of importance and understand, okay, how am I right with that or not? This is first step to the product, trying to find and validate the product market fit. The second step is, out of those assumptions, you focus on so-called market assumptions. This is customers and their needs and expected values. So this, if you look at the value prop canvas, it's all like a right-hand side, this circle, right? Of that, and then try to look whether there is any evidence out there, or whether you are right or wrong. Again, you might be right, you might not. These are your assumptions. So how do you do that? You do it by running tests or experiments. And this is a very fancy and strong word, but it's actually nothing much more than a common sense you most likely already have done. But let's quickly go through a few things for today. So you are running tests, designing and running the experiments or the tests. So what are those assumptions you're going to test? Are they testable? In other words, are they binary enough? Something that is yes or no thing rather than a statement, which is very difficult to test. How are you going to test them? There are very different testing methods, particularly for the market assumptions, and we just get into them in a minute. But what exactly you pick and why? The next super important question, what are your so-called pass-fail criteria? What does that mean? We as human beings are wired in this, our processing unit, so weirdly, or maybe not weirdly, that's an evolution thing, right? We are wired it in a way that we prefer good news to truth, okay? Some of us can live with that better than others. Some of us consciously understand that this is not a good idea, but very subconsciously, we all like good news over the truth. And this is the single biggest, in my experience, this is the single biggest. Sometimes it's also referred to as confirmation bias, but this is not, confirmation bias is a broader concept. It can come also from other sources. So, but the trick is, okay, how do we become neutral to our experiments? How do we really look into what the world needs instead of desperately seeking any tiniest justification that we're right? Because we hate being wrong. That's human nature. Again, some of us can like recognize that this is the fact, and some of us even don't recognize that we hate to be wrong. And in a funny way, building new products that have the chance of being sticky is somehow playing a little bit of a devil's advocate for our thing, right? It's kind of a trying to prove that we're wrong. Because if we fail proving that we're wrong, then most probably we're right, and that is damn sticky, right? And it will be good in the end. So it is always in each test and each experiment you run, just it's subjective, it's fine, but try to say that, okay, in order for us to be right, then like something of this magnitude should happen. For example, I don't know, 50 people out of 100 would sign up for tests out of those who has seen, you know, our ad, or 2 people out of 10 will actually tell about that this is their most severe problem even without us asking them, and so on and so forth. Again, depending on experiment, there's very different ways how you should think about those pass-fail criteria, but please think for them at least in a on subjective terms, because it's very, very tempting to, yeah, Maria Johanna, that is exactly what we're going to talk for the rest of today and most of the next Monday. So about the testing methods. That's what I'm actually going to do here. All right. So then the question, how many tests you're going to you're supposed to perform? Is it like what do you think is sufficient number? Again, it's very different depending on what kind of a test you run. Then just do testing, and then try to understand what was it. What did you learn? did you validate and validate the initial idea? Or maybe you observed something unexpected, some other thing that, for example, only left-handed people are interested in your product. I'm kidding, but you know what I mean. So something that you didn't even come across before with the idea who might or who might not be your customer, which then in turn might help you to change or fine-tune your customer segment. And then the question is, okay, with everything we learned and observed and validated or invalidated, what does change to our assumptions? How does our business model, still hypothetical business model, how does it fine-tunes and how does it change? Are we still, into the same thing, or we need to pivot somewhere like 90 degrees away, or we kind of are right, but we need smaller iterations to something, etc., etc. Now, very briefly, again, like I did promise, I will leave you with some information about where to look for much more detailed information, because this is definitely not for, it's not an excuse, but it's definitely not for 2 times 2 hours discussion. But I'll scratch the surface with some ideas and answering also Maria Johanna with a question of what exactly the test, how exactly the tests could and should look like. Okay, there are, in terms of market testing, well, let's stick to something I'm jointly have calling exploratory methods. So you basically try to understand from your customers, or by observing your customers, or anything in between, or looking into some specific and generic data out there, whether you have been correct or not with your market assumptions. Remember, the market assumptions are about the customers, their behaviors, their goals, pains, and values. Right. So the customer interview, by far, this is the most popular. If you're super early, if you have an idea, you don't have anything figured out yet, then as one of the early things, the customer interview is by far the most widely used, and for a good reason. It's relatively cheap, relatively quick, and then you also can gather some information which can shape your way of further tests. What is customer interview? The customer interview is basically a conversation with a potential, rarely existing, because this is your assumptions, but sometimes you also deconstruct your existing business models or build new products on top of existing ones. So they could be existing, but pretty much potential customers in a non-selling context. This is a big idea. So you should, with all your efforts, signal that you're not going to sell them anything. Why? Because if they perceive this as kind of a sales talk, it's broken. You won't get anything about their worldviews. Not exactly you can't get, but it's a huge risk that you won't get anything about their behaviors, about the worldviews and everything out of it, because they are very cautious not to buy something they're not willing to buy. So this is a non-selling context, and the only aim is to gather information about their worldview in the given context you are seeking for. And this could be best done by encouraging storytelling, and this is done by asking open-ended questions, which leave them the room to explain what exactly. So instead of asking, have you experienced, which is closed-ended question, is answerable by yes and no, you can ask the question, when was the last time? Or how frequently? On all of that subject, because then it provokes that explanation, which is interesting for you. Yeah, thank you already. Dennis is suggesting the mom test. This is one interesting read for the particularly for customer interview thing. Thank you, Dennis, for helping me out. Right. I'm looking just sideways into the chat. So actually, this is the biggest idea. So that's why do not overscript your ideas. Have some plan, because you don't want it to depart into something about, you know, lazy kids and ill kittens or something at your customer's home. Sorry for silly examples, but you kind of don't want to go into what you don't want to go, but leave the room, kind of maneuver literally of the customer explaining things about what is how he or she or the company or whomever you're talking to is perceiving things, and just try to navigate carefully or like a little bit towards some part you're interested in. Surveys they serve the same purpose. This is a very initial, cheap and relatively simple way how to understand the behaviors and the worldviews, but the principle is very different, and I want to emphasize that specifically. The principle is that you do not try asking open-ended questions, because again, most of the respondents of the survey are you know, have not much vested interest for you to write an essay type of answers. You are going for kind of quantitative findings. You want the data points, as with customer interview that was qualitative. You were looking for trends, for patterns. Okay, the only thing you look is keywords, trends, and patterns in customer interview. But for the survey, it's opposite. You look for quantitative findings, so you can actually try to analyze this data set. So that for that you ask closed-ended questions. Yes or no, black or white. Out of these 10 problems, please indicate the three biggest. On a scale 1 to 5, please comment upon something. Please arrange these 3 things in the order of the most painful, so on and so forth, or these 3 functionalities in the order of most desirable. So you get it. See, you're doing a different thing for the same reason. So don't look for qualitative findings. It's superficial. You won't see how the customers tell it in their own words and the patterns and everything. You can't understand stories and digging deeper into the why they're doing this or that, which you can do easily, not easily, but at the customer interview. But this is something I would always suggest you start with. If you're really early, especially again with a new user experience product, start early. Start with customer interviews, and then after you have start seeing patterns. And this is beautiful question from Kirke. How many respondents would be minimum, and how can I find them and get them to fill the survey? We'll get back both to the surveys and to the also the customer interviews, where I can find those people. But the idea is that you are first starting with customer interviews, figuring out some patterns, noting the keywords, because that is a big idea. And then you are in a better position, at least this is my experience, in a better position to basically design a better survey. because you're asking potentially more of a right questions, because you have discussed those things with someone in a customer survey. So sometimes, customer interview. Sometimes this is also with the students, especially, that everyone feels that this is, the surveys are cutting corners and that's easier to do, and we start with surveys and then probably we take someone out for the interview. But I would suggest that you do other way around. You start with the interviews, look for patterns, and sort of do it. Then do a survey where you can actually embody all those findings. So back to Kirke's question, how many respondents would be minimum? It's very much dependent. When we talk about customer interviews, I'd say anything where you start seeing patterns on the critical questions, critical unknowns of you. It could be 10, it could be 100. The more the better, but the customer interviews really take time. So where you see the patterns, I would say a few dozens is good. It also is very specific to whether you are in a B2C or B2B, okay? Because in a B2B, it's technically much more difficult to do a number like 30 interviews or something. So you sometimes even don't have that many, customers in your close circle you can reach out and convince them talking to you. So where do you find them? Generally for the interviews, I'd say all the situations where the people are looking for something themselves, which is trade fairs, conferences, a beautiful one. Sometimes even some shopping place or something, but not necessarily the park, or something like that. If you're more resemble a student, there people are more forgiving. That's my observation. So some of us can have difficulties with that one, but generally speaking, you can always say that you kind of are exploring something as part of your studies, and it's kind of goes well. Regarding this survey, it's super. It is very, very, very different ways how to do about it. One is like a group, for example, hobby or professional groups and not professional, not that many, but some sort of a groups in the social media and in Facebook. Yeah, exactly. That is true. That this is a trick, being a student and writing theses or whatever. Yeah, it's kind of, it can help. Yeah, indeed, it may help. But then there is lots of things. There is lots of again. Think of in terms of this survey respondents. Think of the customer segment, right? Because if you think of a certain customer segment, which, for example, is united by a profession or united by a hobby or united by some other demographic element, then look where that crowd hangs around, right? So this is probably oh yeah, this is a beautiful one. So especially the B2B interview, this is B2B interviews. I think that's what you're referring to. Always ask permission for further, not the permission, but ask for further intros. I actually have mentioned it also at some point. I'm not sure where the slide has gone, but maybe this is okay. I'm actually just my bad. I will switch slides. Yeah, this relates primarily also to these interviews and surveys. So first of all, they cannot be designed, they cannot be delegated. Sometimes it's not your problem. You most likely won't do it but this is corporate innovations problem, because big companies always look for some, interns or marketing companies or someone else, agencies who's doing that for them, which is so wrong. You can ask some help in, maybe really spreading it or something, but all the designing and doing is not delegatable. Why? Remember, because of this good news versus truth thing. And you have a very very high risk that if you entitle someone else to do that, and as a result pay them for that, then they will tend to bring you good news but not the truth. As for interviews, talk to one person at a time. I'm very lukewarm towards focus groups. I'd say focus groups are okay for solution testing, but not for problem, because the loudest, the most extrovert member's opinion prevails, but not the most typical. Again, make sure to remember the pass-fail criteria. So what really should be happening? Don't pull the right answers out of them. For that, you just can interpret, parrot back. Did I understand correctly that this is this? No, this is not, and so on and so forth. And then what Guntis already was touching upon, ask for further intros, especially with the B2B, because they're hard to get, and people actually, you'll be amazed, they will introduce you even with competitors and someone else. And always ask permission coming back. For example, if you're not testing your product assumptions immediately, and you could actually, by running a little demo in the end, and mind it, in the end, never start your interviews with the demos, because if they see your solution, if they see that this is, your solution, they already will be tunnel visioned about the problem, and it will not get a full picture out of them. Okay. One last word on those methods before this is still the data part, and then we just finish in style. One last thing, actually, all the surveys and interviews are cool, and I really suggest you start very early with them, but they have one single big issue. They are not very believable, because people tend lying to you. And not because they're bad, but because they sense which are those answers you want to get, right? And they will try pleasing you, and they will tell how cool this is, and they will tell how big of a problem it was, and they will, in the end of the day, they will buy a product for sure, yeah, and pay like 100,000 something each time, and that is all because they want you to succeed. Again, in my life, in my observation, most of the people are nice and want us to succeed, and as such, they sometimes play a bad joke to us, because they kind of bring us the good news instead of truth. So one way how you might overcome this confirmation bias, this is a different bias, this is coming from outside, in the, for example, interview, is with the permission, of course. Try observing your customers. It's not necessarily always possible, and stalking people unless you haven't get a permission is not okay. But try observing them. And you will get more of an information how they do behave, instead of what they think how they behave. That's a big idea, a very different one, right? So think again for yourselves how many times you probably, because we all speak in headline concepts of eating well and sorting our garbage and everything like that, which is not necessarily always true. I'm not saying it's not true, but it's not necessarily as true as we would imagine it as being. Okay, so these were two things. All exploration part of interviews maybe can be run as observations, as this called in design thinking practice. It's called day in life, I think. And then there is also the surveys. Now, one thing I want to mention is then the data analysis. Of course, there can be specific to understand the customers, the markets, the worldviews. they could be specific and generic. Specific are specific to your industry. They could be very specific data out there that you need to understand. Consumption data, I don't know, wind charts if you're in wind microgeneration or whatnot. There are plenty of data which can also approve or disapprove your hypothesis about something. So those are specific to what you're building. So just look out to find them. But there are some generic ones which are very often overlooked and unfortunately so. So first of all, search trend analysis. Google Trends, Google Keyword Planner are for free. You can look up what the people are Googling, what's important, how they word it, all that stuff. It can help you. It can actually understand you, first of all, how to communicate about what you're doing, but also sometimes also iterating the thing towards where the people, where the market really is looking for some solutions. Discussion forums. Discussion forums are great because, and this also goes together with all this product reviews stuff, because they could, of course, you have to discount for all, rant how the things are bad or wrong or whatnot, and this is not working and that's not working. But again, similarly, it's kind of a indirect customer. Think of this as an indirect customer interview. People are explaining the problem and using a certain keywords and certain logics, and this is the most painful thing. People are often also, when we especially go to the product reviews, but also the forums, they also are complaining about existing solutions, what's wrong with them. Again, and if you kind of take away all this, foam of ranting, you can see patterns, maybe, or maybe some keywords which keep repeating. So you can try to understand the way how they think about the problems, how they think about the existing solutions, and try to learn from it. By the way, discussion forums are super good also for having, for building your customer interview deal flow. Because if you, for example, see someone being vocal on some discussion forum, you can ask her or him to a online or on-site interview. Maybe they're agree to that and share their views if they're have certain perspective of on the problem or on the context, on the industry, or on the solutions currently being presented, right? So especially for B2C, B2B things are B2B information on, it's not that easy to gather from this generic data analysis. There you should be looking more into the specific industry data, which again are different in each of the industries. Okay, good. So once again, in a nutshell, testing market assumptions. There are plenty of other things I'm happily share you the information about, but there's then there is the surveys / day in a life. Interviews / day in a life, surveys, and data analysis are the most widely used and the most helpful in the beginning to understand what your customers might want. Now I want you, again, like we agreed with Diana, nicely, kindly, Diana agreed that we do this, that we ask you a little exercise. It could be very helpful for you, and hopefully your mentors in the program will return to discussing that at some point. So whatever you feel free using any sort of template if you wish, or no template whatsoever, to really revisiting your product market fit assumptions. You remember, I also will be sharing files about the customers, their problems, potential solutions they're expecting, your value proposition you're bringing to the table, functionality and monetization. Maybe some of them are not sufficiently validated. Maybe you're still puzzled what is the biggest pain of your customers, or what is the biggest probably value you can bring to the table. So try picking those assumptions you're still unsure about and which are kind of a make or break. If you're wrong, that you have to go back to the square one. So which are really risky for your product development. And then think how you're going to test them. Either these few suggestions I gave, or maybe feel free to look for some others in the information I will give you. And then really go out to the building and do testing, right? Try really making sure whether this is believable and you really do believe it. And then come back and see what have you learned, any insights. And again, if you're serious about it, you definitely will find things where you're right about, but where you also are very, very badly wrong about. Then prepare this thing which we developed with Diana some time ago, which is called Product Market Fit Development Template, a product of Prototron. And this is, it looks like ugly, like everything I'm co-developed in this world, but you'll be fine. So the idea is try filling in the greenish cells. Okay, because this whileish will be pink, whatever is the color, scarletish, whileish. That's for later. But you just go with those first few ones. So one sentence pitch, what you're doing, it will be very helpful also for anyone else looking at you. What are the most critical market assumptions? How we're going to test it? What did you do? So what did you understood? What has changed? And that's pretty much it. And the other part is from for the next after the next session with me. All right, so the useful sources I referred to a few times. So if you want all the canvases, business model canvas, and also the designing the execution aids and custom interview tips, whatnot, go to strategizer.com. It's a blog of Alex Osterwalder, who's also authors a few books, one I'm suggesting. And then there you just you're supposed to leave your email, but then everything is for free. They don't charge you for downloads or whatnot. If you want to test out the Lean Canvas, the other format I was mentioning, go to LeanStack. And for books, already there was Dennis suggested the MOM test, which is specifically on how to design and execute the customer interviews. But a broader repository of how you generally can test the business ideas, both the market, this discovery, there's sometimes referred to as a customer discovery part, and then also the validation part, which we'll be talking about next week, is this book by David Blond and Alex Osterwalder called Testing Business Ideas. You can Google up and you quite actually likely will have even the free PDF somewhere on the net. But of course, if you want to support science and education, you can always buy the books also in an ebook and everywhere else. And okay. So this is something that you do within, like, just in some of you maybe have already accustomed by testing the things, and some probably conceptually haven't been there yet. Just for you to see how it goes, just for you to see whether you're comfortable with that. Setting the assumption, figuring out how to test, going and testing, coming back and understanding what you've done, and then how you move on from there. And the last thing from my side, just please remember, this is a team activity. If you have a team, that's a teamwork. It's not like someone does it and others are sitting quietly coding or soldering, right? No, this is not This is not how early teams work. In ideal world, you should somehow try doing it as much as a team and agreeing upon what you have found. Because again, one person can be very subjective with the findings, but a team helps to neutralize that to an extent. All right, that was for me for today. I hope you. Okay, I hope you enjoyed it to at least to some extent, and I'm looking forward to meet you in a week's time for the sequel, for the second part of our discussion about the product assumptions. So what you do, okay, you figured out whether you or get closer to idea whether the market might need it, then let's then turn into, do you really solve something with whatever you're suggesting? All right, I guess we've done on time, surprisingly. It doesn't happen often. Thank you, Margus. Yeah, we tried a lot. This is actually a trial and error thing, I think. The very first time, Jana, if I recall right, we didn't. And then we ended up with, now everybody does everything. And then we got, okay, we need to do a template for Prototron, and we did it. So, okay. Guntis asks the question, and you're welcome to ask me questions. I definitely have at least those 15 minutes and definitely more for you guys. If problem is seasonal, does the interview validating process should be aligned to it? So if there's how, wonderful. I know, Guntis, why you're asking. I know Guntis for ages. So, but wow, that's a wonderful question. I'll be honest, I don't know. Okay, I don't know how to respond to it. I let me think for a while, because I'm not that clever to answer everything on a fly. Guntis made me think. So what is? I would the quick answer. Let me think on this more. But the quick answer, I would do it like a different. If it's a seasonal, I would do it like in the off season and on season, and then compare whether there is a pattern of difference. Okay. And that would highlight whether the people think about a few things while they might have this, or they think as a preparatory thing, right? I'm not sure I answered very, very specifically, but I would do it like in like a certain like time shifted. So, okay, one is, yeah, thank you. One is when you are facing the context, and one is when you're preparing for the context, or before or after that. Merely asks, should we upload the homework? A good one, Jana. It used to be some sort of a shared folder, but this is a question to Jana, not me. Where to upload this?
I would prefer if really I will not do this any kind of shared folder, but I will share like very, very soon in Slack the whole matrix for the mentoring, and there will be a specific tab for you to revise how we know your idea is called, and there will be a link. So there will be like a space you can put the link wherever you create this table. You can just put a link to this table, so for mentors and for me and for Viesturs to look at it. So not to mess up everything in one folder, but just to give us a link. Will it work for you?
I guess it's simpler. You do it on your own shared space, right? And then just send a link, post the link on that document, on the master document that Jana was advising, something like that, right?
Yep.
It should work. Beautiful. Any more questions, ladies and gentlemen? No, this is by far that's the quiet. I already told it, Jana. That's the most quiet group of Prototron. Is it a good thing or a bad thing?
I don't know, really. The previous one was so chit chat, like continuously. I was forced to stop everything.
We were.
Because otherwise it would be forever.
But then, anyways, it's not a criticism. Maybe you will by doing you will discover things we can discuss next time. So I'm always at your service. Don't worry.
Viesturs.
Deadline for homework. Thank you very for the question, Kerli. I suppose it will be super nice if you can do it, for example, by the Friday, because then it's also better for you. Then you can get some kind of reflection of what you have done, and then you will have extra questions for the next Monday when investors will come back.
Yeah, but don't be afraid if you, for example, can't schedule some interviews. You can keep it doing, right? We just parted it a little bit artificially into market and problem, testing. But it in a real life it will move on, and I would love if you revisit it from time to time with new information. Exactly. Someone started asking me a question. Apologies, we started to.
Yes, let's if everything is for Viesturs, then I would like to let Viesturs to go and to have a rest, and I will briefly show this matrix, and then we can continue. So just if anyone has any questions for Viesturs.
This is to me now, and then I don't want to interfere with your internal Prototron.
Hi, Viesturs. Yeah.
Hey.
Yes. Can you hear me well?
Yeah.
Yes.
I even can see you. Okay.
Oh, lovely. Yeah, thank you. Quick question about this value proposition canvas. I've heard it. It has been recommended by many other people as well. But can you recommend someone who had really greatly filled it in and used it? Do you have like a filled-in template just to show how it looked like? Because there are different ways how to generalize your thoughts, but maybe just to see someone who has done it like perfectly, like a good school kid. Thank you.
I will try to find one until the next time. I can probably pick with this. Thank you. It's a nice one. It's the homework. Now we're equal. It's a homework for me as well. Great, thank you, Margus. I will put a note. I'm an old senile person. I'm always putting notes somewhere not to forget. All right, thank you so much, guys. Okay, there is merely quickly for old markets, food business management easier. Okay, there's probably something that is still coming. The last sentence doesn't look
maybe I will talk. I have done interviews with business owners, and I have asked feedback for my idea.
Mm-hmm.
So far they have been really supportive about that.
Mm-hmm.
And they hint that they are awaiting this kind of idea to become something great.
Yep.
And they will be interested to try it, but I'm a little bit skeptical because we are talking, everything seems good, but if the product is ready, maybe they don't want it. They are saying good things, like we discussed it before.
Yes.
So
this is we're already jumping onto the part we're discussing in weeks time. So this is about your solution, reaction to solution.
Yeah.
So this is already about whether they will indeed be interested to use /buy /recommend the thing that is the solution already. So the quick answer is the simple answer is yes, that talking is too little. So make them acting, and we'll discuss how. Again, depending how it's, but if because it's a solution part already, like you explained. So am I right with the assumption that they acknowledge the problem or acknowledge the need, right? That's
yes, exactly.
Clear. There is a need there, right?
Yeah.
And you're suggesting how to solve it, and they're pretty much seem to be interested in that.
It's both ways. I try to talk as less as possible. So at the beginning, I have to ask warm-up questions, and in the end, they are talking the solutions that they are hoping for. So they give me more ideas, which is good, but I'm afraid that it's just a dreaming, not reality.
Well, no, if they suggest you solutions, it's a very good thing. That is largely it's largely that it could be also, you know, the question is of the superficiality, right? But of that context, but it's largely means that they have thought, at least by talking, they think about solutions, and the people think about the solutions. This is a very good indirect justification they have a problem. Because if the people don't have a problem, they don't seek solutions and think of solutions and don't try anything else. It's always, okay, do you have a problem? Yes. So how you have solved it? Well, I haven't. Okay, so that answer means either you don't have such a painful problem in the first place, right? Or there's some other context we don't see it for now. But yeah, but back to, I'm super happy to, and then remind me by asking specific questions. I'm super happy getting back to the solution testing next week. Yep. Making a beautiful, now they keep coming, make signing a letter of interest. Exactly, that's a testing method. Joseph, it's a testing method. That's a beautiful thing. LOIs are testing methods, if they're for real or not. And or ask upfront, yes, exactly. Ask the upfront payment. We don't know exactly merely what it is, what you're building, but it's of course also a good thing to consider. Beautiful, thank you. So we're this is what I call peer-to-peer learning. So you already helped out merely to an extent. All good. Anything else? No. All right, Jana, then I leave it with your other technicalities. Thank you for being patient with me, and see you in a week's time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, Viesturs has left our Zoom. I hope you can hear me. I'm really sorry for my voice. It means that please, tomorrow should be my workshop, but please check the schedule, or at least Slack. I will say you if I still will manage with the voice to keep talking. If not, then we will postpone our workshop from tomorrow. Okay. Some other questions. Okay, it's family. Cool. So I will record this part also, so everyone can watch it again. I will show you how this mentoring matrix looks like. So this is it, the easiest of possible. So you can see that some of the slots are already available tomorrow. So you just look what is, for example, Yelena is talking about, and she have been to our first meeting last week. So you have seen her. She's basically more for the finances. And if there is no still specific time, that it means that mentor hasn't given us the specific time, but they will do it definitely. If there is already specific time, then you just put yourself. And the links will appear as soon as there will be some kind of a team who would like to participate. And if you see that all available slots are taken, and you still would, for example, would like to talk with Stream, or I don't know, Preet or whatever, then you just give me know. And I can just talk with the mentor for either extra time for you, or just extra time for all of you to get some extra hours. And for example, this is the first time we have, but not the first time, but still some of the teams would like to talk with some specific topics only. For example, Oliver is now would like to talk basically about Web3 and metaverse and crypto. So it means that for mentors, it's also not to waste time, or if they want to be in this topic, then they think that this is how they can help the most. Okay, and this link will appear in 1 minute in Slack. And the same as we finish this workshop, it will take a couple of minutes or maybe a little bit more for Zoom to compile the video, and then I can share the link of the recording. Any questions?
Jana.
Yes.
Yes. Hi, this is Margus here again. A quick question. Is it also possible to meet mentors face to face? If they happen to be in a certain location, then would it be possible as well?
I mean,
maybe.
Yes, some of the mentors even have written to me that they are ready to meet face to face. But I suppose it will be better if you want to see someone, then you mean to go to Slash or Max?
I mean, if they, for example, work somewhere in center of the town, I can go there at a certain time and talk with them face to face instead of waiting for the Zoom link.
Yes, there are some mentors who are ready to make such kind of meetings, but please write me so I can communicate with it with mentor.
Thanks.
And really, you will assign yourself, and I will not restrict it. And it means that please be nice to others. And if someone has taken the time, do not delete it. Ask me for extra time from the mentor. Okay? Do not be cruel to another ones.
I have another question. Where can we find information about the mentors, about this?
In Google and in LinkedIn.
Just right. Okay. I thought maybe we'll have also like
no, because it's always when I will write the bio and or the mentor will give the bio, then some information can be lost. So this is for you also one of the homework to search for the information. So, any other questions? And the link is already in Slack, so you can start to check.
About this home task. So I understand that we should prepare it for Friday.
It will be nice. Yes.
On this event that the works that are late, then the teams are out. But as I understand, we got time until the next time we meet with this lecturer.
I really suggest you to start to work with this table of product market fit this week.
But we only need to present this table.
Yes. Okay. And I mean, as Viesturs mentioned, it's not never-ending story, because you always can find other aspects and you always can check and talk about it. So, but please start to work on it.
Sure.
And of course, it means that if you will be working this week, then next week on Monday, when Viesturs will come again, then you will have very specific questions, and you can show something to him. Thanks.
Okay, thanks.
What is really critical is if you don't participate in mentoring sessions, it means that mentors cannot assess you, because mentors help you, but at the same time, they are filling other matrices where they put the ratings for you. And if there will be 0, it means nobody has assessed you, then nobody even will consider you to go further into finals, because I will not have any kind of information about from mentors about you. Yep.
Jana, this product market fit template, it will be available as a file somewhere, or we draw this table by ourselves?
Yes, it will be available,
Mm.
but I need to find it.
Okay.
But Viesturs very quickly sends me the presentations. Yes, it's already on my post. Yes, everything is already here. So I will link it, these files to you in Slack.
Thanks. Jana, a quick question. So I just, in the mentor list, I just filled in our startup name and it got crossed out. What does it mean?
It means that it's the matrix is copied and there was some old formattation.
Okay.
And of course, in this matrix, look on the tab of which is named 29th batch. Please look that there is the right name of your idea and the right short intro and the right web page.
Yeah. But then, like for me, sorry, it's again me. Now I think the server name is not crossed out anymore, but then there is no link. I mean, for the meeting.
As I told you, links will appear as the, so I will put the links manually, but I
Okay.
want to see that the teams are there.
All right. Thanks.
And also, I suppose this, for example, cool Arctics is now appearing as a link. It means that it would be very nice if, for example, you have the one pager or your web page, and when you put this, the name of your team, you can link it for the mentor, you know, to quickly to check your one pager or your pitch deck or something. So just to think about how to make it so easy and so convenient for the mentors to really check your materials and be ready about what you're talking, so they can have any kind of background information. It will save your time, so you don't need to make so much of introduction, but maybe mentor already has thought through about what to talk with you about. Yes, Vlad.
Hi, Anna. Please say who is the mentor from Hedman Partners? I can't find Thomas Seppel in the table.
Yes, because he haven't assigned yet, so mentors also assigned. I see that only Katipino was told me, but I will write to Thomas.
Okay, thank you. I will wait.
Then how to add team members to Prototron. Guntis, it's very easy. This document is just open for everyone who has the link, so it's not restricted anyhow. And for Maria Johanna, no, not all the team should be present in meeting with the mentor, but the critical ones, you know. The worst what you can do, because you have only 20 minutes, if you're like, oh, I cannot answer this question because our CTO is there. Oh, I don't know anything about our marketing strategy because another person is doing it. So, you know, just think about what is the most critical, and someone or couple of you who can answer different questions. But of course, do not put all your team together, then it will be very complicated for you to make any kind of plans. Yes, as I told you, Harald, that some of the mentors don't have time posted yet, so they still are looking for this time slots for you. They will be posted as soon as possible. As soon as they will send me something, they will appear there. But for example, if you check, then Prototron has already given me the Calendly link. So it means that you by yourself is just assigning in his Calendly. Any other questions? But it means that you are somehow understanding what you should do. So I hope you started to make a research about the mentors and assign yourself and find your own slots. And just ask me in Slack. Or you can write some comments here, but better is in Slack, then it will be only one channel for me to communicate. Okay? Very, very quiet batch, really, really.
Let's make some noise.
Please, for the record.
Yoo-hoo!
Thank you very much. So you will see this recording very soon and the presentations also. So have a nice evening. Ciao.
Thanks, Jana.